Hi, good morning, Georgia. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Okay. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. So how is life going over there for you down under?
It's been pretty good. It's been hard not training with my team, obviously. Everyone's been a bit isolated. I've still been working full time, pretty much, essential worker, which is lucky. I wasn't out of work, but yeah, it's been weird not training.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you do for a living? What have you been doing as an essential worker?
I'm an osteopath, so similar to a physical therapist or a chiropractor, a manual therapist. So just helping with all the people in pain, hopefully like the musculoskeletal people, we kind of bring them into our private practice rather than loading up the emergencies with low back pain or fractures. Like we can do, I don't personally do fracture dressings, but at my work we do fracture clinics.
Awesome. So where are you located at the moment? You're in Sydney, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, in Sydney. My work's actually a bit south inland of Sydney, about an hour or 45 hour from the city.
Okay,
But
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. So have you been playing in Sydney recently or what kind of rugby have you been playing lately?
I just changed to rugby league, so this is my first season. We had our first game just before COVID hit, so I was kind of sad to not get to keep playing, but that's all right. But yeah, league. I haven't played rugby for about a year now, so it's a bit weird.
Oh wow, awesome. What made you switch? Kind of what was the turning point with switching from union to league?
After Union last year, like the season in the Super W last year, and then I had an Achilles tendinopathy, so I couldn't run, and I had a concussion just before I had the Achilles tendinopathy. So it was like two injuries in one go, and then as I couldn't run, my head, I was like, I just needed a break. So I had the break, and then I started jujitsu because you obviously don't really need to run in jujitsu, and I had the Achilles tendinopathy, so the running was a bit hard. And I fell in love with jujitsu, and then I actually planned to just do jujitsu this year, but then I moved from the Gold Coast, which is about a 10-hour drive from Sydney, down to Sydney for work, and I was training back at this gym that I used to train at, Live Athletic in Cronulla, and a few of the girls at the gym were like, "Oh, are you gonna come down for training this season, Georgia?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And then they kept pushing me. They're like, "Oh, so you're gonna come down to training?" I was like, "Oh, maybe." And then one of them messaged me again. She's like, "You've got to come this week." And I was like, "All right, I'll come. Fine."
Peer,
And
peer pressure.
yeah, it was peer pressure because I wouldn't have gone if they didn't keep pushing. And then I went down and I loved it from the beginning. So I was
Awesome.
like, I miss this team vibe. So
Yeah,
it was good.
yeah, awesome. Well, and jujitsu is such like a good cross training sport, anyway. So I'm sure you'll always
Oh, so good. So good for league.
have, right? That's awesome. So you said you moved from Brisbane, right? You were living up north.
Gold Coast, Gold Coast.
Right. Okay. And so you actually know my friend Ashley Shreese from Wisconsin.
Yes.
And that's where I'm currently right now. So what do you think about American rugby? I know you played here for a year. And do you think that the game will ever grow to be as big as it is in Australia?
Well, it's funny. It depends. Like sevens are 100%. And now with is it the major rugby league? Is it MPL? What is it?
Major League Rugby?
Yes. With that starting to take off, and they're bringing in really good players from other countries, I don't think it's very far behind. Like to see how much it's grown in the last 5 years, and where USA men and women are on the sevens, like they're like top of the ladders. Both of them are up in the top three or whatever they are. So it won't be long until they're consistently up the top.
Yeah.
In America, they just have the pathways. They have really good solid pathways in other sports, and it won't take long to develop USA Rugby pathways to a professional contract. And America has such good athletes, and I've said this from when I lived in America. Obviously I played that 1 year of college at Lindenwood, and looking around, I couldn't believe how athletic all of the girls were, and then even on the men's team. And the thing that was missing was like that rugby mindset, or like knowing how to read a field, and developing, let's say maybe in Australia we grow up playing touch or Oztag, whereas in America you don't really have that. So our like reading the field, our game skills are quite good, but we might not be as athletic in some areas. You know what I mean? We haven't developed from a young age like that. And so as soon as America catches up their rugby skill, if that makes sense, with their athletic ability, be unstoppable. I really believe that would be like top, really up the top.
Awesome. So you played in the States for a year, and what did you think? Did you notice any differences between, like the teams over there in Australia compared to here, the rugby teams, or do you think the culture was pretty similar, or what do you think that kind of stood out to you?
Well, it's funny. It was like my first year that I played college rugby there was pretty much nearly my first season of 15. So I hadn't been exposed to 15s before I moved to America. I'd only played 7s. And the thing that I noticed that was a bit different was probably like the professionalism, like being that student athlete. And we had such a like strict training schedule, which wasn't really the same in Australia. And I would say the standard of play was better in Australia, but how professional it was better in America.
Okay.
At that time. Now it's a bit different, but back in 2014, when it was like for girls, it was kind of when we first had our spike for a sudden female participation increase. Yes, so it was probably quite professional with how it was set up in the college system. But the same culture in the drinking with 15s is the same. So we used to just get in the 15 season, different to 7 season, but yes, very same. Similar to Australia.
Awesome. Well, that's one of the reasons I played for 15 years and have loved it, no matter where I am in the world. So the culture of rugby, right?
It's the same. Like if you meet a rugby player, you guys get along straight away because doesn't matter where you are.
You're from the same blood.
And rugby community is a small world. Someone knows someone that plays who you played with. Like how we know someone.
Yeah.
I live with us. We live together.
Such a small world.
And yeah.
So
it's such a small world.
You said you have basically been playing some type of rugby since as long as you can remember, since you were, a kid. Do you remember?
18. I was 18.
18? Okay. So 18 when you started first playing, but who got you to first play rugby, and why did you decide it was a good idea to play a game like
that? So it was my first year of university. I actually played basketball growing up. So I moved from my hometown all the way up, like north of New South Wales, which is quite far from home. And the basketball court wasn't as good as what it was in Sydney. So I was playing like student touch, which like it was Oztag, student Oztag, which is similar to like flag football in America. And a lady was like, you should come try and play rugby sevens with us for the college team. And I was like, sure, why not? That'll be fun. She's like, you'll be great. I was like, this sounds like fun. I was like, wait, it's full tackle? She was like, yeah. I was like, And then played my first game with my university team that we just had like a thrown together team. And it was so much fun. I loved it from the beginning. So
you're like a little different.
That's how it started.
Basketball, but
I know, so different from basketball.
Maybe a little bit more contact. Speaking of, what was the worst rugby injury you've ever had?
Um, I don't know. It depends. There's so many different injuries along the way. Concussion stuff's quite bad because it's something that you can't see, but you just get those like the symptoms from it. So concussion's probably I would say probably the worst one, but also high grade stress fractures in my leg was quite bad. It was so painful at night. What else has been bad? Yeah, they're probably the worst for me.
And maybe that bloody nose that you received on the pitch was
That wasn't that bad.
a memorable one too. Yeah, just breaking your nose.
It's still straight at least.
Yeah, it looks great. It looks great. But
I
yeah.
just have a deviated now. I don't know if you can see it up there.
I know how you feel, and I shattered my whole side of my face.
I know.
Came off the field with that bloody nose, but it's a kind of a fun way to think of I don't know, just being a little bit tougher, and it's just a glorious game. No.
Well, I think at that time that like it was like you were quite stoic, and female rugby players are stoic. Like we just brush it off, like But when that video went around, there hadn't been much footage of female rugby players playing out to the world,
Mm-hmm.
So I think especially for Americans, and because that's where it kind of went really big for me, like even ESPN had got a hold of that video. It was like, whoa, female rugby players are tough, And the same as, imagine if it was you that had the video, if people saw you when you hurt your face, it would have been the same thing. It's just that we didn't have the broadcasting that we should have had back then,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does come down to the broadcasting, and hey, the rules are the same with women's rugby as men's rugby, and we we bash each other just as much as
we're tougher probably.
Right? We also have a hair to pull. Accidentally, usually. Right?
Oh yeah, I've seen some bad hair pulls before.
Always an accident though. So what's your favorite rugby position in, league or 15s or 7s? What would you say is your go-to or your favorite?
I love playing hooker in 7s. So peeling off the scrum and running the hard line, being a big like hits, tackling. In league, I really like edge back row obviously on the edge of the field, like hard running, tackling again. And I also in 15s I probably like inside center. Inside center with like that hard inners line. It's probably like my favorite.
Awesome, love that. So who is one of the most positive players you've ever played with, and why?
That's a tricky question. I'm thinking about all the girls that I've played with along the years.
You don't have to pick just one.
I know, that is a hard one. Who is the most positive player I've played with? There's so many random. I don't know.
We can always come back to it.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Awesome. So next question. How do you train now compared to before quarantine life? What's your training like, and kind of how has it changed?
So I've been just training because we're still allowed to exercise with one other person. I've been training field sessions with my mate Ash twice a week. We've been just doing mainly conditioning blocks and then some speed work. And I've still been getting in I have the home gym, which is lucky. I've still been getting in 3 to 4 strength sessions a week. So it's been still pretty similar to me, except the team aspect, I suppose.
Yeah, that's awesome. when you're not in the mood to train, which everybody kind of has those, weird ebbs and flows, and what usually helps you most kind of get into the mood to work out? Like, you have to do a training session, but let's say, the
Hmm.
motivation isn't there. What do you say usually helps you the most?
I think as soon as you start warming up, like I generally find as soon as I start warming up and I actually start doing it, like I'm excited to be there and I am happy to work out. It's just you just have to go first, Even if I don't want to do it, if I go, I know that I'll want to do it. And it's hard when you're by yourself because when you've got a team, obviously, then you're like, oh shit, I got to do good because my teammates are here. But by yourself, it is a bit harder. But that's when the most important time is, especially as a female athlete that's working full time. You do have to train by yourself sometimes because you've got to work it around your life, like work. And so it's kind of just being disciplined and going and just going. And once you start working out, you're like, I'm happy to be here.
Mhm. Absolutely. Awesome. What is your favorite pre or post workout or training session or game meal?
Mm,
What do you like?
game meal. Whew. I actually just like having a banana after I play. That's like the most like if
Satisfying.
I'm like my go-to is a banana or just like some kind of fruit. When you've played and you just are so fucked, you don't even feel like eating.
Like, I'm so tired. Maybe I can drink a little bit, but yeah.
I actually don't mind peanut butter sandwiches either. That's probably a good one. Mm.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. Next question. Do you have
Mhm.
any mental health suggestions for rugby players right now in terms of training or in terms of just kind of getting through this rough patch? How have you been
Mhm.
staying positive through all of this? I know your situation is a little different because you do have a home gym and you get to see one of your teammates
Yeah.
with.
Mhm. Mhm.
Any suggestions?
So I think the most important thing is to control the controllables, right? So everything that you can do that you can control that gives you some kind of like confidence. So making sure that you're eating right because that's something you can control, making sure that you do go out and go for a run if you can, or if you can't, then you can still do body weight stuff at home. You can still be doing things to improve yourself as a rugby player and as a human at home, even though it's not going to training with your mates. You can watch old film of you. You can message your coach, ask for maybe some skills that you need to work on. If it's passing, there's ways to break down passing ability that you could do at home. There's so many little things that you can control that will still make you a better player, even if it isn't just like you can't go to training. So not to worry about the things that you can't control, like this, like what the virus is doing to us, or if it's raining outside and you can't go to training at times, it's not like you get upset about it. You know what I mean? You can't control the weather, so why let it worry you? That's kind of my main thing, is control the controllables.
I love that. That's a great mindset. Last
Yes.
couple questions here before we wrap up. What
Hmm.
do people not know about you? Do you have any side projects or side hobbies? I know you mentioned jujitsu earlier that probably a lot of people don't know
Hmm.
about you. But is there anything else that you kind of want to drop in and mention and tell the world?
Something that a lot of people know I'm an osteopath, but people don't really know what an osteopath is. But I almost can crack, adjust every joint in the body legally.
Wow.
That makes any sense. Yeah, so can adjust necks, can adjust low backs, wrists, forearms, like the elbow joint.
That's
So
awesome.
I can adjust like every joint. That's probably something that not many people know about me.
Cool.
Legally do it too. um,
I bet your teammates
as
love
well in
for that.
jiu-jitsu. What was that? Sorry.
Oh, I just said, I bet your teammates enjoy that factor that you can easily adjust them whenever they need it.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, that's how I got so good. I used to practice on all my teammates.
You're like, just don't tell on me if
Do you know who's probably?
something.
Yeah, that's what I was learning. I'm like, shh, don't tell anyone. This is definitely illegal.
I'm sure they didn't mind it. Okay, last bit. Any words of encouragement for any athletes right now who are working to get to, you know, where you are in life, not just with rugby, but with, you know, balancing a career and playing rugby at a, you know, pretty high level. Anything you have to say for them?
I think it's important if you don't know your why, like why are you doing what you're doing? It's hard at times, like when you asked me before what keeps me motivated. I know the reason why I play still, and I know the reason why I do what I do, and that's what drives me. So when you feel like when you don't want to go to training, or you're struggling to juggle work, chasing that rugby dream or whatever, like remembering why you're playing is so important. Like for me, it's I want to see a pathway for young girls come through rugby union league, and have like the older girls to look at and be like, oh, these girls juggled like full-time work and were still good athletes. I want them to have someone to look up to play towards, as well as like I still love pushing myself, and I really love the game of like the mental game of things. So remembering your why is the important part.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great motivating factor. And usually they say it's like the best motivators to remember your why. And
Yeah, well, if you don't have a clear one, it's like that's when you drop off.
yeah, absolutely. So back to the question about the positive teammates. Do you think of anybody or want to
You
give?
know, Ashley's pretty positive. She's probably one of the most positive.
Love
She's a she's a hard worker, very hard worker, and I think that that's something that I look towards in teammates, is the ones like I don't really care if you're not that talented, but if you're working hard in fitness behind the scenes doing the extras, then they're the teammates that I want around me, you know.
absolutely. Yeah, she's kind of a newer player, so that's awesome that, you know, no matter if you're newer or if you've been playing for 20 years, it's something that you can always keep working on is staying positive in your motivation and just the grind and hustle.
Exactly. I love all the hustlers and the grinders.
Well,
They're my favorites.
thank you, Gio, so much for joining us today. Is there anything else you want to mention or anything else you want to share before we sign off?
Um, well, I am planning on starting like my own. So I wish 5 years ago, well, when I was about 18 to 20, that I had someone to kind of mentor me and direct me with my mindset, direct me with like how to push myself with my physical capabilities and my mental capabilities. So I'm starting to do a little bit of like online coaching for like health and performance, more directed towards people that I was 5 years ago, if you know what I mean. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's probably my new little side thing.
Love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a company name or a handle or anything yet?
Um, georgiapage.com.au is my website. So if you are interested, you can email me on there. We can go from there.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us today. And I hope you have an awesome day because it's Sunday there. So I'm just thinking the time difference.
I know.
Thank you
It's
again.
so hard to catch up when you're across the world.
I hear you. Well, thanks again, Georgia, and have a great day.
Thank you for having me. That's okay. Thank
Bye.
you for having me.